Okay, great. We'll get started. Thanks for joining I think it's our last Lunch and Learn for this month. Maybe we'll continue in the future. We still haven't had a chance to actually have lunch during the Lunch and Learn. We usually have lunch afterwards, actually. Today, we're focusing on, thanks to our panelists, I can see them in various contexts. Some people are on leave, some people are in nature, some people are at home. Hello, Warren, Gail, Nikki. Let me see, Jonathan's here. He might join later. Just a reminder of how Lunch and Learn works. We spend an hour together reflecting on some projects in the past. People are popping in and popping off, some of them just for 5 minutes. The only formality is just to speak about what we mean by smarter and more collaborative cities. So I'll start with that, and then we'll get into a nice discussion with some of the people we've worked with. We've previously covered housing and neighborhoods, mobility and walkability. We had a session on public spaces as well. So it's been quite a fun series. The nice part is we only have an hour and everyone gets back to what they're doing continues to do what they were doing during their day. And just a reminder that it's not a panel discussion. We have panelists, but please jump in at any point in time. The sessions are all recorded, so anybody who wants to watch all the previous sessions, you're welcome to at the urbanfestival.co website, and we will be putting it at the Our Future Cities website as well. Just a reminder, I'm Rashik Vittar, I'm from Our Future Cities, and I'll just take you through a bit in terms of how we've interpreted smarter or more collaborative cities. And let me try and share my screen properly. So there are these sort of broad areas in which we work in. They're not departments or sectors, but they speak a bit to the mission we have in various spaces, in various cities, in various communities. We were very fortunate in the last week, Siska, who's my colleague who's here, to have had our Tafelsig placemaking initiative get underway in Mitchell's Plain. That was completed last Saturday with a beautiful new tree and some seating. And then our infamous parklet, which used to be in Sea Point, has, and traveled to the V&A waterfront, who kindly hosted it for a few years, has now landed in Bree Street. I don't think we have the permissions, but it is in Bree Street, outside Cafe Frank, for those who are looking for the parklets. And we're heading down there just after this call today, if you want to go and see that. Yeah, the parklet is both to do with mobility, but also public space and advocacy. So these areas are really not siloed areas. But let me just go through today. I just want to make a slide. Let's see if there is.
Maybe just do it as you normally do, like not full screen.
Sorry, let me just.
Stop it.
There we go. We use the word smarter for a particular reason. I think there's been a lot of talk about smart cities, but we've found in various projects that it's really the people, the processes, the screen sharing is paused.
Just say resume.
Sorry about that.
What if we just click into it?
Here we go. Oh, it's in the wrong one. Sorry, this new computer is not.
Maybe stop share.
Stop share.
And then just do it like that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna share like this. Sorry about that. So there's a lot of talk about smart cities, but we prefer to think of smarter cities, which is the people, processes, the cultures becoming smarter, not just applying tech solutions to infrastructure and to cities. And one example I always use is I hate to pick on a council official, but somebody who prints all the pages of the council documents, like 500 pages, and takes it to a council meeting, that's probably a person that needs to become smarter and more efficient. But this area of work, which is called More Collaborative and Smarter Cities, we foster spaces for collaboration between different cities and countries. So Nikki is here from the Dutch consulate, sometimes called the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Cape Town. I have to get that right. Encouraging effective public-private cooperation and identifying opportunities for joint initiatives. That sounds like a lot of a long sentence, but it's quite tricky to bring government and companies together, especially those who are trying to do good. Lobbying for improved efficiency and support from public sector, bringing together different disciplines and fields and practitioners, including the academic sector, who are not always that aligned with reality. And then we've got great things like the Young Urbanist Community, which we launched in 2013, which now is a whole group of young, cool people who are running that and having their own talks and discussions. So lots of networking opportunities, events, and tours to increase the accessibility of knowledge about cities and space. I'm going to start with Nikki. I know you've got bad signal and you might need to hop off. Can you hear me?
Yes. Sorry, I'm also on leave and trying to find a signal. So apologies, but I'm very much here.
No, perfectly fine. Nikki, I just wanted to, our relationship with the Netherlands consulate, embassy, and in particular, the consulate in Cape Town is sort of 6-7 years now. Maybe share a bit about sort of the earliest involvement you had with Our Future Cities about bringing the two countries and cities, well, bringing the two countries together around sort of the local sustainability challenges in South Africa.
Yes, well, I actually have to take a step back, Rashik, to before my time, I'm told.
Yes.
Because I've spoken to some colleagues in the office, and I just wanted to get a sort of more fuller understanding of our collaboration over the years. And I'm told that you were very much, or Our Future City was very much instrumental in our Department of Design Week, which was fundamental in creating our brand and way of doing things, which is now called Co-Create SANL. And this notion of collaboration and partnership being at the very heart of what we do as a foreign mission here in Cape Town. And I think that the role of you and your team at that stage was pretty critical, and in fact has been associated with the birth of what we are today. So I do want to thank you for that, because you do have an incredible network and an incredible way of bringing people together and looking at things holistically, which ties into our concept of design thinking, holistic solution making. So going forth from Department of Design and the creation of this sort of partnership basis upon which we work, we then obviously, and I know, Our Future Cities is broader than just Rashik, but certainly Rashik then became one of our change makers and a critical part of our network. And I understand you went off to the Netherlands as well, Rashik, is that correct?
Yeah, I was very lucky, but I got sent on the International Visitors Program alone as a representative. Usually it's a group, I believe, like logistics goes as a group. So I had, I think, 4 days of back-to-back meetings across 4 cities, which was amazing. Sure. I mean, that's the experience of a lifetime. And I still have lasting relationships with almost everyone, which I think is the point of Co-Create SA. I remember, Nikki, you weren't working at the concert at the time, but we were in the back office of the ground floor, and we came up with a postcard. I think Co-Create SA was actually just a postcard at first.
And look what it is. Yeah, wow.
Which would take photos of people in the streets and ask them what are the ways that South Africa could co-create with other countries on certain issues. And then, very tricky for the consulate is that it got adopted nationally, which was, amazing. And then, we had a great time with Co-Create Design Festival as well, which
absolutely, which is definitely the next stage of our collaboration with Our Future Cities, and took Co-Create to a whole new level, in the sense that We wanted to look at the way design and design thinking worked. We looked first at looking beyond the crisis when we were in amidst the water crisis in 2018, and then we looked at the notion of resilience. And I think all those things don't mean anything if you're not partnering with the right people, and you're not looking interdisciplinary, and you're not looking, and that's the whole point of what those festivals did. They kind of brought the conversations to the people. It was public-led discussion, which is, when you look at design in the Cape Town context particularly, it's something, you know, it's often a little bit more exclusive. And I think that you and your team were able to, with CDI and ourselves, make it more accessible. And I think that's what I'm most proud about and grateful for the Co-Create Design Festival, which is still going on. We are focusing a bit more on the fourth industrial revolution now and making that more inclusive. So it's gone a different direction, but the basis still remains. And I think that collaboration was absolutely key.
Nikki, I think it's I don't know if fortuitous is the word, sister. What is that you are now joining us at Urban Festival?
Indeed.
I said to the team when we were conceptualizing Urban Festival, which is the first time, you know, the South African Cities Network and COGTA, which is the Ministry of Governance and Traditional Affairs, and various other partners, Civic Tech Innovation Network. It's the first sort of Zoom only, well, not Zoom only, but virtual event. And I think we learned so much from Department of Design and Co-Create. I mean, you know, from the right partners, the right programs. So thank you for getting us here 6-7 years later. It was much easier to do this because of our experience with you.
And there's no doubt that we will continue with that collaboration, Rashik. There is just so much potential and so much need and so much opportunities for creativity that, there's no doubt. I think COVID's been a little bit of a challenge, but everybody's risen to the virtual opportunities that have risen. So well done to you and your team for doing that too. And I think if we keep these conversations going, which is also fundamental to the Co-Create way, there can only be a hope.
Thanks so much, Nikki. I'm sure we'll work together again quite soon. And I look forward to all the initiatives. I mean, the initiatives that came out of Co-Create SA, I mean, you did amazing work with women in leadership. You did amazing work with different arts groups that we met through Department of Design. I think there were some graffiti artists. And so I think a lot of LGBTQI focus as well. So
indeed, yes.
The nice part about working with your small team, but impactful team, is that it is always two ways, really. And, you know, it was sort of collaboration in the truest sense. You know, those relationships lasted over many years, and it fed into other things as well, which is the whole point. I think it was for you to have a presence in South Africa, which was beyond just trade and actually building, you know, meaningful personal relationships as well.
Indeed, I think because the Dutch history here in South Africa, particularly Cape Town, is both really positive in the sense of the Netherlands' role in the anti-apartheid movement, but also it brings with it 1652 and Jan van Riebeeck and all the complexities that brings. Means that we have no other option but just to listen, to dialogue, to understand, and to make the right partners. And I think that's been our lesson. And as you say, it's kind of had an impact on all the aspects that we're involved in, from culture to economics to design to, you know, all the human rights issues, all principles that remain valid and true. So yeah, thank you for being part of that conversation.
Thanks for giving us your time during your leave period. I have to be reminded what leave means, but maybe in December we'll have.
Yeah, please do, Rashik. It's mind-blowingly amazing. I was reminded now, and I just
it's been a tricky year. Yeah, it's been a tricky.
Yeah, it has, because we've been working from home and we've been homing from home, and so leave from home also sounds weird. But yeah, I'm enjoying it nevertheless.
Yeah.
I'm going to duck out of this conversation fairly soon, if that's okay, because I have children and dogs and all sorts of things. But again, all the best. This is, it's you guys have done so well, and there's no doubt we'll collaborate again.
Awesome. Thanks. Have a good leave period and enjoy the family time. Jonathan, I know you're in Johannesburg, right? I'm going to switch right over to you. When you commissioned our Future Cities with the Smart Cities series, I think it's your Smart City paper series feeds into basically national government's view on smart cities. And we'd never worked necessarily in tech specifically, but maybe just share about what you maybe learned from our paper on the looking into the IDPs of Joburg and Cape Town, and maybe how it helped your work to have our perspectives on smart cities.
Cool, thanks, Rishik. Excuse me if I sniff, I'm a bit under the weather. But yeah, I mean, Rishik, you wrote a paper for us for our Smart Governance paper series. And what we were doing there was really to try and learn more about smart cities, but also under the guise of governance. The reason for that was multiple. I mean, one of them was just because our next SSCN's next State of Cities report is focusing on governance and the deep underlying governance issues that we face within our cities. So we wanted to have a closer look on how smartness or the sort of tech can add to that. So, I mean, it focused on three, I suppose, core aspects. The one was looking at using data to drive decision-making, which is a specific focus I have at the organization. The other one was participating more with citizens to sort of participatory governance to get the citizens' voice in making decision-makings, which we believe is sort of key and fundamental. And then the third one was about sort of, and again, linked to the two former aspects, was about opening up access to data and information for everyone. And then I suppose you wrote a paper that was touching on IDPs and where does sort of smart strategies and policies and developments find themselves in the IDPs. And I mean, it's something that we're finding more and more as we sort of move along, is that it's crucial to sort of have this sort of buy-in from the beginning and a framework for these sort of smart technologies or developments to fit in to drive a city sort of agenda. And I feel like it's something we struggle with quite a lot at the moment with the cities, is that everyone's sort of clutching for this buzzword that is smart, but there's no sort of baseline understanding of what this means and how it fits into to specific cities. So, I mean, we've got the paper series, which I can share should anyone want to read. And Judy Backhouse and Geshi, obviously from SSCN, have written subsequently a follow-up paper for that, which is really interesting about what smart cities mean in the South African context. And this was sort of responding to Cochte's national framework for a smart city. That it was great. It's great to hear that there is a sort of national framework, but there were some issues that Judy and Geshi and Jakudu had with that paper, which I think are clarified quite well. And I'd be happy to share those if you want.
Yeah, I think what we were finding in even with the concept of a smart or smarter city was that even within a particular city, the interdepartmental collaboration was tricky as well. You know, where the smart city program initiative or idea sat really drove a lot of the collaboration or lack thereof. So if it sat within IT and policy, it was going to be a sort of a internal software project. And if it sat in the mayor's office, it depended on who the mayor was at the time. So yeah, I found it quite interesting that what in one way seems like quite a clear concept, in other ways the collaboration can be quite tricky. Jonathan, maybe you just want to mention one or two of the other papers as part of that series, which you think will be interesting to note.
Sure, Rishik. I mean, I'm obviously quite biased because, like I said, my focus is on urban data. So those are the ones that I'm interested in. And Luke Boyle, who's a researcher from UCT, it's URERU, the Urban Real Estate Research Unit. He wrote a paper on open data portals. And that was really interesting because he compared the approach at the City of Cape Town to the approach at eThekwini Municipality. And the City of Cape Town, I mean, we all know they're very far ahead in terms of their data strategy. They've been they've been doing that using data for decision making for quite a while, and I think the water crisis helped them out in terms of sort of testing the limits of that. So that was quite interesting. Whereas they sort of did a top-down approach where organizationally decided that data was something that they wanted to champion, and they've been working on that for quite a few years ever since. Whereas the eThekwini approach, which we've been working, or when I say we, South African Cities Network, with our key partners, Open Cities Lab, for also quite a number of years, that's something that started very differently, more a bottom up, in the sense that I started in a specific department, the Economic Development Unit, with a specific champion, and perhaps this sort of alludes to what you were saying earlier, and someone who is willing to go over and above their role to sort of show the worth of something. And because of Tsakan and Richard and Joanne and everyone who's been working on that project, they've been able to show the value to get council approval from sort of political leadership, and now that's being expanded out to different departments in the city. So they're two very different approaches, one coming from the top and going across, and one coming from the bottom and hopefully now going up. But it's just interesting to see those, and I think Luke's paper sort of brings to light those different approaches and understanding that there's no right way to do it, but yeah, sort of outlines what we need to do. Then another paper that's also really interesting, stepping away perhaps from data more into smart cities, but was by Monique Damons, a researcher at the SACN, and she wrote about ethics for smart cities. And that was just, for me personally, a fascinating read, because it's all the things that we sometimes leave out, which we shouldn't, but just showcases how technology and innovation and smartness can sometimes lead to further exclusion. And that's something that we definitely need to avoid, and we fall at the risk of doing if we just copy what's happening overseas. So it sort of brings to light, again, how we need South African approaches to South African smart cities, and to contextualize it for us and what it means.
Thanks, Jonathan. I know you're not feeling 100%, so again, feel free to drop out or drop back in as you wish. I think, Jake, I see you've joined as well. Thanks for joining us. I think your time zone in Washington is a bit different. What is it?
It's slightly better this week. I think our clocks roll back on Sunday, so it's not as bad as it could be. But good morning from Washington, D.C.
Thanks, Jake, and thanks for logging in. We learned quite a bit from the research on smart city opportunities in South Africa. I think we started with a certain idea, perhaps, and did all these, I think, sort of batches of interviews, and then, distilled some of the key elements and found new people. I think working with us, what has been surprising for you, or trying to unpack what the South African smart cities landscape is? I know that Vivid Economics works on a lot of smart city initiatives, both in terms of economic zones, but also in terms of the technology side. Yeah, how was that process for you, and what was surprising and news to you about South Africa?
I think perhaps a mistake or an easy trap to fall into when working on smart cities is coming at it from a technology perspective. So thinking there's a set of technologies you can use in any city anywhere in the world, and as analysts, we're going to tell those cities about those technologies, and that will make them smart. And maybe that's underplaying our approach a little bit, but I think when we came to the South Africa Future Cities project, you guys were very good at kind of helping us to think about this from a different approach. So from the city perspective, rather than the technology perspective, what is it that each city, the three cities we worked with, and the largest cities in South Africa, what are the problems that they're facing, and how might a smart city application help address their unique problems? And for me, that was a very useful kind of flipping of the framing to have more productive conversations. And I think especially the stakeholders and the community groups and the NPOs that you brought into the interview program wouldn't have been those that we would have maybe reached out to if we were thinking about a sector-based technology driven analysis. The other big takeaway, I guess, looking back on our work that I think our future cities got really well from the start, and it was quite well steeped in, but it took Vivid a bit of time to learn, was around the importance of governance on implementing and planning and thinking about smart cities. And Durban's example really stands out to me, especially around the public transit systems that are at play, which are a really nice and ambitious and exciting opportunity to make some smart city investments, but have these kind of pre-technology needs that have to be addressed and thought about in a very important way. Again, which I don't think, as a group of economists sitting in London, we would have started with. We wouldn't have started to think about the governance structures around Go Durban, or the facilitating conversations and inclusive dialogue that needed to be had in the first place to get to discussions about infrastructure and fair classes. So I think that framing was extremely helpful, and stopped us from perhaps wasting time in a place that would have led to unproductive conversations and not really revealed the type of opportunities that the UK government in this case was looking for us to help identify for.
Yeah, I think it links into, I think, Jake, you might have missed Nikki from the Dutch consulate in Cape Town. And of course, we worked with them for 6-7 years, purely in identifying impactful partnerships and collaborations between the Netherlands and South Africa. And so I suppose you and I had a more rapid few months of saying, if South Africa is going to move into this particular space, and the UK has SMMEs and developed programs around smart cities, and they fund various missions of companies around the world, if we speak to a lot of people quite quickly, where are the overlaps, which are the areas where South Africa has real challenges, which could be almost leapfrogged by actually the experience of another company or another designer in the UK. And the UK is obviously quite a large place as well. I think what was also nice is that it wasn't purely economics. It was sort of a mixture between trade and diplomacy and tech and infrastructure. And I think at some point we said, why isn't there an ongoing future cities space to foster this? And not just, I think, for the UK, but for various countries and cities that need a space to think and to try out, different projects and different companies and technologies. And I think that was a sort of, I think one of our recommendations perhaps was that, is to find both physical, of course, COVID has changed things a bit, but find physical and virtual spaces to maintain. And I think it's quite interesting because Future Cities South Africa, which is the UK South Africa program, are a partner of Urban Festival as well. So it's all super interlinked, and it's been great to see the PwC team, Helen and Maibuye, again, through being one of the partners in the meetings for this festival as well. So thanks very much, Jake, for logging in. You welcome.
And it's great to just going to comment. It's great to see one of our recommendations starting to be implemented through this series and these types of conversations.
You should take full credit for that. And keep doing the great work. I see your Vivid Economics LinkedIn is very active with really cool new projects, and I'm always sharing them because I think it's much needed. I think it's showing that the kind of research and work that you do and we do can have real impact on a local level as well, and on neighborhoods as well, and not purely be these reports which sort of sit there and nobody actually reads. So yeah, thanks for doing such great work.
No, and I think, we're really pleased, of course, to have been able to work together, and we hear from our clients a lot of interest in helping in looking at how to work in South Africa to help cities advance, whether it's in low carbon investments or smart cities or other planning related matters. I think it's very much seen as an exciting place to do work, and a potentially impactful place for the types of donors and NGOs that Vivid works with on a global level to get involved. So hopefully there's a chance to revisit some of the great partnerships that we set up earlier this year in the next few months or years.
Yeah, it'll be great. Thanks so much, Jake. You're welcome to stay or go back to sleep or start your workday, whatever the exact time is. Gail Jennings is incredible. We've formally collaborated, been friends for such a long time. I think the first time we met Gail was in Woodstock at, I think it's the Old Castle Brewery or something like that. We were talking about forming a bicycle Cape Town initiative at the time, but in various ways we'd call on each other, Gail, for everything to do with advocacy and even just for a rant about government or academia. Gail, I know you're working on a really cool new project around a decision-making framework, specifically relating to what we've seen now, well, what we've not seen in African cities during the pandemic, which is tactical, rapid pop-up responses in space to ways that people use cities. We still need to unpack why we haven't seen those, but yeah, Gail, if you could maybe just share a bit about that work. I think it's funded by UK or the US. You have to correct me there. UK.
UK8. It's who. Sorry, my internet keeps saying it's unstable. So unfortunately, it's my internet is unstable.
You can leave your video.
UK8 used to be. Sorry, but then you won't be able to see the cats.
We didn't cater for another panelist. So.
Sorry. Oh yeah. Let me switch off the video just in case. So yeah, I mean, it's always nicer to see people, but yeah, thanks, Rashik. Yes, what this project that we're working on is funded by UK8, and it was a call for. Sorry, now all of my videos have disappeared, so now it's very weird. I can't see any of you. It's like I'm looking at a blank screen. Oh, there we go.
I'm still here.
This was a call in about. Oh, good. Well, then that's fine, as long as you're there. And I see Marcel is there too, so that's great. In May, the kind of HVT, that's high volume transport, put out a call for COVID response and recovery research projects. And myself and a colleague, Rahul Joban-Putra, who used to be the head of transport in Cape Town, transport planning, we thought what would be really interesting is to have a look at where are the high volume potential bicycle corridors that could be developed for as people got back to work. So once South Africa started going back into sort of economic recovery mode, where could possibly be pop-up kind of bicycle highways or high volume corridors for people to travel? I mean, we all know the issues around public transport and the challenges there, and around the issues around cycling. So we were hoping to get this research done in time for the city to respond with infrastructure light or pop-up facilities. But be that as it may, the projects were only awarded in October. So, the good thing about this kind of work is that even though we are allegedly out of the kind of COVID-19 crisis, we might be moving to a second wave. But even if not, these are the kind of things that we need to be talking about anyway. And trying to develop cities in the future, whether we have any kind of pandemic or transport constraints or not. So I'm very interested that most people who've been talking on the panel so far have been identifying the fact that smart cities is not about tech. Because what we are particularly interested in this instance is really low tech or infrastructure light, where you can develop your infrastructure quickly and rapidly, see if it meets people's needs, and if not, well, then move it. And like your pop-up kind of I don't know, I never know what is the official title. Your kind of, I always want to call it your kind of picnic site.
The world's best parklet.
That's those things. A picnic lit, I think. Yeah, if it doesn't work there, you can move them. So that's the project that we're working on now, and we are really we're just starting it now. What we're wanting to try and investigate, and we will be coming to talk to as many people as possible, because our interests here are again, as you were saying, smart cities are collaborative So we wanting to understand where it might work if we had to try and develop this kind of infrastructure. Where do people want to travel? Because we know with developing bicycle facilities, one of the challenges is that cities don't necessarily build bicycle infrastructure or facilities where people actually want to travel, or even where people do travel, but where there's space, or where there's least resistance, or, you know, who knows for what reason in many instances. And there's often a desire to try and channel movement to where it's convenient for cities to develop the infrastructure rather than build where it might be inconvenient for everybody else, but really convenient for cyclists. So we wanting to understand, where do people go? Where could we try and promote this kind of infrastructure? And try and understand the challenges to building kind of rapid infrastructure. What are the regulatory or kind of institutional issues with that? And you know very well from your parklet that, you know, these things are not, you know, we think these things will be welcome, but not always. Also, you know, there are issues particularly around cycling infrastructure and liability, or, you know, engineering concerns. And we find that there are, in most of the guidelines that are developed for building infrastructure, there's real concerns that these need to be kind of high-end, perfect greenfield type developments that meet the highest standards in terms of road safety. So we find that very often these facilities are then not built at all, because it is impossible to build the perfect kind of facilities that the guidelines propose. So then we often have nothing. Or alternatively, we have the kind of infrastructure that, you know, meets these standards, but, you know, really people are not going to ride there. So we are also trying to investigate what the challenges are around building infrastructure light or pop-up facilities that are still going to meet the standards if they have to meet the standards. You know, already cyclists cycle on the road, which is we are legally permitted to do, but that certainly wouldn't meet the safety standards if we're going to hold people accountable. So we're looking at all these different issues around how can we develop a rapid infrastructure that is going to offer cyclists a great deal more safety than what they have already, but not necessarily the alleged safety that they will have by the high-end perfect facilities. So that's really, in a nutshell, the project. But we really are interested to know what other people think about all these areas. We will be going and talking to people as individuals or having online focus groups. I really prefer face-to-face focus groups, but, you know, that's, we'll can have one on your parklet. So yeah, any questions? If I have spoken so quickly that nobody knows what I'm talking about, please also let me know. I see that's Marcella, you asked a question. Yes, we will definitely be talking to city officials. I'm just reading the chat from Marcella, because I mean, that's going to be key, exactly as you say, to find out what they find useful and acceptable, because you know, what is understood to be acceptable means, as I was saying, acceptable in terms of these kind of strict liability issues, but in fact quite different things might be acceptable to cyclists. You know, think those bike lanes on Woodstock main road, past the engineering guidelines kind of tick box. But I mean, so that was acceptable to the city, but certainly not acceptable to people who were going to use them.
Yeah.
So yes, we will be having city officials on our stakeholders.
Thanks, Gail.
And we'll have you, Marcella,
about this project.
trying to say on our stakeholders.
I just wanted to get to Warren as well, from the CEO of the Greater Tiger Partnership. Warren, we are very fortunate to work with you on Belleville Invest, which is the communication, the research, the ideas to promote what is a really important node in Cape Town to the rest of the country and to the rest of the world. And today we're talking about, I suppose, smarter cities and collaboration. Is Belleville a smarter city and a zone where collaboration can happen? Maybe we could just share a bit
It was
about
actually,
what we came up with and if we should be promoting it as that. I suppose that's a big question as well.
it's actually interesting. I mean, the definition around smarter cities is a curious one. I think it's going to invoke a lot of debate all around the world as to what exactly a smarter city is. I was actually just reading an interesting article this morning around cities worldwide moving towards resilient cities rather than smarter cities, given the impact of COVID. So it's a fascinating debate. And like everyone else, I believe having people at the forefront makes a city smart. So seeing people rather than tech for me is people in public places, people in facilities, and engaging, and far more engagement makes from a smarter city from our perspective. And I think one of the leading parts of a smarter city is understanding what the infrastructural assets of a city are before we can even begin in engaging as to what it should be. And I think a lot of the work that we've done with you specifically has been delving into Belleville specific asset structure and unpacking what exactly we have as a starting point, what the foundation is, what the asset pillars are, and where we can take it forward from there. And I think any city around the world needs to understand the inherent asset base before they start embarking on becoming smarter. So I think, the work you guys have done has certainly contributed enormously to where we believe Belleville should be heading. And I think the key to connecting people is imperative. And I think a smarter city is a more connected city, and Belleville represents a lot of that. Belleville represents a very diverse stakeholder list. I think we've got a range of stakeholders that represent the entire country. We've got infrastructural industries and commercial entities operating within the area. And as you know more than anyone else, we've got some very important verticals driving a city. So I think once we've now understood those verticals, to start connecting those in the smartest possible way does create a facility for a smart city. Yeah.
Yeah, I also find it interesting because I think there are parts of the town center or the CBD itself where people from across Africa, outside of South Africa, have created a smart network themselves, in the knowledge they exchange and the way that they live. And I think somebody was telling me that the CBD is sort of an informal logistics point for goods, which then goes to the Metro Southeast. So it just depends on where you learn or who you learn from sometimes as well.
It's actually incredible. I think you're right. The foreign national community and that very semi-structured trading environment. Some major tech companies, including some of the big telecom service providers, are learning a lot from what's happening on the streets of Belleville. So where the sort of semi-formal traders have got their own logistics networks and supply chain networks, some of the big companies are learning and trying to jump onto that bandwagon to drive initiatives to formalize some of the stuff that's already happening on the street. So you're quite right.
Interesting. You don't have to build an innovation park or an innovation zone. It's kind of just depends on where you're looking and
yeah. If you keep your ears open when you're walking around Belleville, you'll hear a lot about innovation and what the guys are doing and how things are seamlessly working, despite, without being offensive, despite the city. So there's a lot of stuff that's working down at the ground level.
Great. I just want to check if there are any questions, because I still have many. Are there any raised hands or questions from? We still have 10 minutes left, so we're good for time, from any other panelists or any of the social media platforms, Facebook Live, Instagram, Twitter. We're just checking. While we're waiting to see if there are other questions, I'm just seeing if there are comments. Gail, I just wanted to pop back to you about, you said that you're looking in various locations across Africa in terms of your research. And I just wanted to figure out
Yes.
how you're collaborating. Is it sort of with different governments and different groups? How are you managing that?
We're looking in Nairobi and Kampala, and we have local colleagues and activist groups who we're working with there. Because what is interesting is that Uganda, we did encourage walking and cycling during COVID because all forms of transport were constrained, including private vehicles. So walking and cycling were very very sort of explicitly promoted. Nairobi less so. But what is interesting also is to try and understand the different decision making around where bicycling facilities are, how they designed in these different cities is also proving to be quite interesting. Quite different mechanisms of deciding where it's important to build. So that's something that'll be interesting to feed back.
Gail,
to
Sophia,
interested
our
people.
colleague, is in Nairobi at the moment, so she's on the panel as well. So if you,
Oh, fantastic.
so when you go
Oh,
there
good.
or before you go
That
there,
would be really, yeah, I will make contact. I'll Sophia, I see you there. I'll get your details and mail you.
and I can see Sophia.
Hi, nice to see you. Yeah.
Forming connections during the.
That's the point of lunch and learn.
That's the
right?
point of lunch. and
Yeah,
learn, right?
but you can, even these online things. I mean, it's better than not seeing people at all.
Yeah, I recently had a conversation with Marcella as well about a question about the regulatory challenges and in particular in terms of streets. Marcella was obviously leading open streets for a long time, and which changed everyone's perception of space in Cape Town and the city. So I think I'll be glad to share our experiences on the Parklet, which is now on Breeze Street.
That would be fantastic.
The seats are movable, so they're also socially distant seats, which are quite great. Yeah, Marcella says looking forward. I think she is in Cape Town still, so maybe
Yes.
a conference on the Parklet. There's a question from Hillary.
Yeah.
Alexander, how can the public and private sectors work together to build smarter cities? What are the key points to consider or connection points that need to be maximized? I'll give it a first stab. I'm not, I can't cover everything, but from what we've seen with the South African Cities Network Commission paper on Johannesburg and Cape Town's IDPs and their view on smart cities, and our work with Vivid and GTP and actually everyone here, is that there's a space, I suppose, within the private sector moves quite quickly and has projects which they can test and investment they can make. But the connection points are finding a space, I think, in government where there's a space to fail. And whether it's calling it a pilot or prototype, there must be a reason why something that could really improve the quality of life, let's say for a group like women and girls using public transport, there must be a space where an innovation or an idea can be tested and would have a significant impact and be tested safely. I think I'm not sure if that space needs to be inside a local government department, but maybe there are organizations like the GTP which form these intermediary touch points where you're going to get your biggest impact. So possibly foreign funding moves into organizations linked to government, but have a bigger space to test ideas, so we can avoid questions around procurement. But where smarter cities and smarter ideas can directly improve the quality of life of the majority, I think those should be sort of rapidly implemented. I was saying to someone recently, I think it was somebody in the city, that if Cape Town or South African cities could be a place where you our clear message is test everything here. Every idea, every project, every pilot. We should be the pilot and prototype capital. And even if it's really it doesn't seem so impactful, but a new pedestrian crossing technology, a new lighting initiative. We should have all the lighting companies testing every possible lighting typology in our minibus taxi rank interchanges, and give them a period to test it and learn. And I'm not sure that covers it, Hillary, but there must be a connection point where it's safe and those learnings can feed back into government in in a useful way. Yeah. Lebo, is there something you want to add? It says Lebo is going to answer. Oh, it's answered. We have a few minutes left. I'm not sure if anybody else wants to answer the question, where are the connection points to help public and private sectors work together to build smarter cities? What are those spaces?
If I can, I'm going to jump in there. I think organizations such as yourselves and potentially other NGOs operating in city environments need to be taken far more seriously by the public sector. And it's not just national government, but local municipality government. And the value that's being added by organizations across the board, I mean, including those of the panelists that are attending today, but plus many of the panelists that have attended in your sessions before, need to be taken more seriously by the public sector. And I don't think it's just a funding question. I think it's a process issue in the government corridors that needs to be streamlined and become more flexible to learn and accept some of the changes and innovation that's driving into cities. And these organizations are the forefront and the forerunners of those kind of innovations. And cities need to be more accepting of that. And I'm not sure what the right approach to change their mindset is, but I think it's imperative that to sustain themselves, they need to be taking organizations like yourselves, ourselves, more seriously.
Yeah, and I think we've learned this year, Warren, that, and I'm not sure if anybody else wants to respond, that, you know, things change so quickly, and we don't really have the benefits of time, sort of slow processes. We don't really have the benefit anymore of you know, let's say even public transport. We assumed that there'd be a certain level of revenues because people would be traveling using MyCity, and that suddenly all stopped and affected lots of livelihoods. And so we actually need to move much quicker, try more things, because we're not sure of the shocks and the stresses of the future. And if we don't, then there are people still having to use public transport with fewer people there and at night and with bad lighting. So I keep harping on the lighting typologies. I'm not working for Philips, I promise, but we can't really afford not to anymore. And I think this year has taught us that. Gail, on your point, we've been pitching the Florida Road streetery for quite a while in Durban. We've got all sorts of support, but we were recently asked to get a private sector funded traffic study to take away one lane in Florida Road for restaurants and retail and businesses to recover and trade, which is ironic.
That's not going to be
on the weekend when I was there, cars were double parking outside places. So kind of no traffic study was needed for that. So if you ever want to hear about that project, I'm glad to share why that's currently not.
Yeah, and of course there's always it's feet that bring people to eateries, not cars, but that seems to be a very difficult thing to get people to understand and believe.
Yeah, it was ironic that there was no enforcement for the cars double park, because that that was taking away. That is essentially what we wanted to do, was one lane each direction with some barriers and cones, and say, well, let's space out a bit. Let's keep one traffic lane in each direction. But the most recent response, even despite having support from the city manager, Durban Tourism, the improvement district, was that somebody needs to pay for a traffic study. And that amazes me in this pandemic environment. Okay, we're at 1 o'clock. We're all going to get back to, we're going to the parklet now, actually, to have lunch. Thanks everyone for joining. An hour does seem too short, but I think it is also the appropriate amount of time we could expect from our amazing panelists. Warren, we'll work together quite soon. Lots to do in Belleville. Gail will meet on the parklet. Jake, I'm sure we're going to work together, if not this year, then early next year. And you can always call on us in anything to do with South African cities. Gail also will connect you to Sophia. Thanks to Jonathan from South African Cities Network and Nikki from the Dutch Consulate as well. Have a great weekend and Friday, everybody. Just remember that all the lunch and learns and all the webinars and jam cafes and exhibitions and tours for Urban Festival are on the urbanfestival.co website. So I think there were, Ruby, 72 events or 71 events, 2,000 participants. So you actually won't miss anything if you just go back to the website and watch in your own time. On Saturday at 10 a.m. we have what we call the closing ceremony. We won't be putting out the flame, the Olympic flame, but we do have, Ruby, correct me if I'm wrong, the Minister of the Minister of Cooperative Governance, Ruby. We have,
yes, that's right.
Yeah, Minister Dlamini Zuma.
And Mayor Pakati.
Mayor Pakati as well, and Geshi, who's amazing from CTIN. So please join in at 10 o'clock tomorrow. You can just watch it in bed on your phones. It's completely fine. And we'll have our poet, Emma Mabie, who produced the incredible poetry, which we didn't play today for some reason. I don't think we did. We just skipped straight through
So
it.
much still covered.
The poems are all on the website as well. So yeah, we'll see all of you at 10 a.m. tomorrow for reflections. And we made a cool video as well, reflecting across the festival. We will host future events outside of Urban Festival. We're just deciding which type of events, and we might even just gather with our same friends and partners again and just connect and stay more in touch on a more regular basis and not wait for a festival to do that. So have a great weekend, everyone. Keep safe, and we'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rashik. Thanks all.
Bye.